Hello everyone, welcome back to our podcast, Nothing Millennial About Us. This is your host, Qasem Soleimani, and joined by Ashmit Roy. And Happy New Year to all of you. Those are bees. 2020 is here, and this year is going to be quite exciting. And as seen from the very first few days of this year, a lot of exciting things are happening. So recently, I guess most of you would have heard about the recent attack on an Iranian military leader, Qasem Soleimani, and by the American forces, and the decision to attack and kill him, basically assassinate him, was given by Donald Trump, the president of the US, and it has triggered a lot of conflict and emotions are running very high, and there are a lot of political issues that are going to rise out of this situation, and possibly this is a game that both sides might end up in a losing way, or so it's difficult to tell exactly what's going to happen, because it is such an unexpected move that nobody really thought that Trump could do something like this, like assassinating a state leader, even though those both countries are not at war and at a time when Congress is not in session. So there are a lot of legality questions also around this. So we are going to talk about it and analyze and the situation and what were the possible reasons that Trump took such an action, and what could possibly happen in the coming few weeks or possibly months, and how Iran could, think about possibly taking retaliatory action against such a attack on its leader. And there's also the situation of Iraq, because the attack took place on Iraqi soil. So they are also in a very, diplomatically in a very...
They're caught between Iran and US.
Yeah, so exactly. So they are also caught in a very tough situation. So there are three countries who are currently trying to figure out what to do
Actually,
next.
Iraq has become a battleground for three countries. In fact, Russia, Iran, America, and Syria. And everybody is fighting on the soil of Iraq, and Iraqi government doesn't have any say. In fact, the northern areas are now dominated by Kurdish organizations. And effectively, the Iraqi central government has no control over them. And then there are Shia militias loyal to Iran, which are doing the most of the fight against Al-Qaeda and ISIS. So, in fact, the so-called normal secularist government of Iraq has little area outside Baghdad. They can call their own.
Right.
So, a brief background to this new development. So why is Iran and America so much fighting against each other? So everybody knows that what happened in 79, that after Islamic Revolution, and Iran got a very Shia Islamist government, which was very anti-America. And they are so much anti-America that it is very common to see in Tehran that death to America, death to Israel chants every Friday or something. So anything goes wrong in Iran, so there's death to Israel and America. So Israelis must be thinking, what has it done? So the problem in the Arab world is that officially Islam is the official religion of most of the countries. But Islam is basically divided into two sects, Shia and Sunnis. So most of the governments in Arab world, the traditional Gulf monarchies, are Sunni dominated. So talk about Jordan, Saudi Arab, Saddam Hussein. So these are all Sunni dominated governments. And Shia dominated government, there were two countries, which were Iran and Syria. So Shias are minority mostly in every country, but they think that they are not given the same rights as the Sunnis.
Right.
So after the collapse of Saddam Hussein, there was a vacuum in Arab world. It's because Iraq traditionally played that kind of big brother kind of role, which got diminished after the first Gulf War, which was taken up by Saudi Arab, King of Saudi Arab, which is not very, who is not very popular among the other nations because of his link to US and his oil diplomacy. So Iran started to enter that vacuum. And there's a theory in international relation called Shia crescent. So what they have done, that they are putting up proxies in each country. So like they have propped up Hezbollah in Lebanon, and for those who remember, there was a big war between Israel and Hezbollah in 2006. So Hezbollah is a state within state. They occupy South Lebanon. They have their own army. They have their rocket launchers. They have anti-tank missiles. They have their own courts, government. So this is all propped up by Iran, and the brain child for this idea was the General Soleimani. He thought about this. So they're talking about Hezbollah in Lebanon, and then in Syria, the Assad government, which is Shia dominated, who constitute only 15% of the total population. He was also propped up by General Soleimani only. So the Quds forces which he heads supported him during the civil war, and had there not been an Iranian intervention, his government would have collapsed by 2012 only. So after that, in Yemen, there are Houthi rebels, which are Iranian supported against Saudi-backed government. So there's a war going on since like 3 years back, I guess. And then by Bahrain also, his proxies are there. And the client state of Iran is Iraq.
Right.
Because after Obama decided to disengage from Iraq, the vacuum of fighting Islamic State and radical Islamist group came on the Iranian-backed organizations. So since Iraq do not have regular military, which they could rely upon, famously their army men started running away after ISIS started coming from north. So Iranian proxy forces, the Shia forces loyal to Iran, started filling in that vacuum. And the General Soleimani is famous to have residing only in Iraq. He hardly stays in Iran, and he stays mostly in Syria and Iraq. So in fact, his death was also in Iraq.
Right.
So that was the reason. So now why Trump decided to attack Soleimani? Because slowly America's role was getting smaller in Middle East. Iran had nearly replaced America from all the countries of significance, and there was a threat that if no action was taken, then probably there will be no country or any organization which would trust America. So what Trump decided to do, that probably that is enough, and he decided to strike right at the core of Iranian establishment. So General Soleimani, who is popular among certain sections, to be honest, and also not very popular in Iran. Because if you check the Reddit Iran's page today, so a lot of people are celebrating also his death. So the reason for attack was that basically they wanted to show Iran that they still matter in Middle East. It's not completely Iranian game.
So I'll just give a background about the last few years. Basically, the Iran-US relations under Trump. So when Trump came to power, Barack Obama had signed a nuclear deal with Iran. Basically, that they would not develop any nuclear weapons, and they would slowly wind down all their nuclear ambitions and plans. But last year only, Trump had decided on his own, even though his own officials did not support this move, he believed that Iran was not abiding by the treaty, and they were carrying out nuclear weapons development secretly. And he also felt that the deal was not favorable to the US, and it gave a lot of leeway to Iran. So Trump decided to pull out of the deal, and he on his own. There was not much evidence to back this up, whether Iran was really violating the treaty. So that really spoiled the relations between US and Iran, which had been going on at a decent level because they were sort of indirectly participating against the fight against ISIS. So in that way, actually, US and Iran were cooperating on a certain level. So after this, Trump pulled out of the deal, he then put economic sanctions also against Iran, and Iran was quite, angry about it. And slowly they had started backing certain militia groups that were used to attack US forces. And recently, around I think 2 or 3 weeks before, there was a attack on Iraq, American forces that comes later. So on American forces, and one contractor was killed, and these were Iranian-backed Iraqi militia. So, and in retaliation, then US carried out certain missile strikes and killed a lot of Iraqis, the Iraqi militias. And then in protest against that, the embassy at Baghdad was laid siege by certain militia, again Iraqis who were actually backed by Iranians. So there were a lot of they had tried to attack the embassy and tried to enter it also, and the US had basically sent additional forces to sort of help the embassy at Baghdad. So there were a lot of tensions going on recently because Trump believed that basically Soleimani was the person who was sort of helping all these militias indirectly and sort of poking at American forces. So I think that is one of the main causes that he suddenly decided to take this extreme action and kill him, because he also believed that his intelligence supplied to him was that Soleimani was planning to carry out more such attacks on American forces in Iraq, and he thought that it would be best to kill him and prevent these future attacks. So that's why this especially the siege at the Iraqi embassy was really the turning point for him and to take this action. So basically, under Trump, last 4 years, the 3 or 4 years, the relations have been slowly degrading, and it has come to a point, as Ashmit also said, that US basically wants to sort of asserts its importance in the Middle East again, which has sort of gone back because of his relations with Russia, and because he has not been able to control Russia. Basically, his friendship with Putin has actually put Russia in a more favorable position in the Middle East, and they are taking bigger roles in the civil war that is going on in Syria, and also Russia has now started participating in that directly, while America, because Trump initially promised that he would pull back all American forces from the Middle East, so now there are very little forces there, American forces there, and Russia has sort of also tried to enter this sort of empty space and asserts its importance. So I think maybe Trump is now trying to undo all of this. So that is also a possibility that it's more of his showing his power also.
I think the American foreign policy from last 7 years in Middle East has been a bit confused, because during the time of George Bush, they were very clear that they are going to stay in Iraq until all the militias, whether it is Sunni Islamist or Shia Islamists, will be crushed, and they even conducted election that time. So that may be rigged, but they at least started. But during Obama's reign, the problem with American foreign policy was that Obama wanted to get out of Iraq. It was very clear. But whom to hand over Iraq to? Because the the ISIS was rising and Al-Qaeda was rising, and if they gave it to the fledgling Iraqi government there, they would have collapsed like they did. So his idea with the peace pact with Iran was that they will pull back and allow Iran a greater role so that they could tackle the Islamic insurgency very well in Iraq. So that was okay, but the problem with the Obama's policy was that apart from Iraq, they were everywhere at loggerheads with Iran, whether it was Syria. In fact, in Syria, Trump is more ready to give concession to Assad as compared to Obama, who was very much hell-bent against Assad, and some even say that the American government cooperated with Islamists in order to throw out Assad. So in Syria, Iran and America were always enemies. And then question of Israel, because in Iran, whatever may be the back channel diplomacy, but officially Iran is always against Israel, and they have one of their proxies just at the north of Israel, that is Hezbollah. So endgame of Obama's policy was also not clear that how will they match out their interests. And then came the issue of Saudi Arabia, which has been a staunchest ally of America. So how will they manage Iran and Saudi Arabia both? Because both of them are quite don't like each other, and some of them consider the other party heretic. So this was the weakness of Obama's policy. And now when Trump inherited that, so Trump, a lot of people think that Trump is a warmonger or something, but actually Trump tried to disengage from Middle East quite a lot. He allowed Russians and Iranians their say in Syria and backed out of support to Kurdish militants. And even in Iraq, he compromised a lot. So officially he disengaged with Iran, but on real word he was trying to get America out of it. But this came as a surprise, because I never thought that Iran would ever attack America directly. like all this talk of American targets being attacked by General Soleimani, they were mostly low intensity conflicts. It was not that Iran was going to send a battalion to American embassy.
Right.
So the point of this strike seems very unclear right now. So now what will be the next step of America? So is it going to be back to George Bush days, which was okay for military point of view? He won the war in both Afghanistan and Iraq. So they are going to increase the troops. I think that 3,000 troops have been sent to Iraq. So are they going to get back into the game? Who will they back now? Because all the Irani militias and Shia militias are going to be against them. ISIS is already against them. So are they going to be third player like the Kurdish in Syria? And are they going to trust Trump? Because he has backed out of all the promises made. So endgame seems very unclear. And I think this attack is most likely to pacify the domestic constituent. Because like the impeachment process is going on. So the background behind the impeachment was that the Ukrainian government has said that Trump has basically pressurized them to not employ Joe Biden's son, or some stories going on there. So basically it was that Trump is in some way colluding with Russians or at some level. So this is basically I think this attack is basically to send signal to the Republican establishment, old conservative establishment, and also the moderate Democratic faction that the neo-conservative foreign policy that America used to practice is back and kicking again. And he has not left that. So the moderate section and the conservative section, he's trying to pull them over by this tactic that he has not surrendered to Russia. The left, which is backed by Bernie Sanders, has obviously criticized this. But Joe Biden, the primary challenger to Trump, has used very diplomatic
Words.
convoluted long answer, which makes no sense. So I think
exactly.
domestic move.
Because you see, Iran, Soleiman, of course, had his dirty hand in every conflict, and it's definitely that many American soldiers must have died because of his actions.
And also Iranian civilians, just to make a point here, because I read actually today only that in Reddit Iran, a lot of people commented that the Quds forces, which was headed by General Soleimani, was behind crushing of many peaceful democratic protests that were going on in Iran. And he's said to be very infamous. The tortures and the executions that the police force have carried out in Iran are very infamous. And the same has been done by his militias across the world. Now, they may be less conservative, religious-wise, they may be less conservative than ISIS, but that doesn't mean that they are saints.
Right.
So just because somebody is fighting ISIS, it doesn't mean that they are secular, democratic and liberal.
Exactly.
So he is quite infamous in Iran, and some people are actually celebrating his death.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I think Trump has, I think political motivation is also definitely a reason behind this attack, because now it puts, it sort of shows him as the, true red-blooded American, and who took the action that other presidents could not take, because there were a lot of articles also that even George W. Bush and Barack Obama had been presented with this option to kill him, but they had decided not to take such an extreme action, killing a state leader. But now Trump has sort of again shown that he is ready to take big steps, and against all those Republicans who are on the on the middle line between supporting him or opposing him are definitely going to join his camp again. And again, the Democrats cannot openly oppose this action, because then that will show them to be sort of anti-American and supporting an Iranian killer or murderer. So that again is a pretty interesting political move that he's placed the Democrats in a difficult position where they cannot neither can they support him, neither can they oppose him. So in that way, again, and of course the 2020 elections are also coming up. So in that way, it again shows that after the death of ISIS leader, and this is the second big, sort of win that he's managed to get. So definitely his supporters who had been, teetering on the line for some time are now going to be back in his camp. So it's going to definitely push his approval ratings up. And also, I want to talk about what Iran could possibly do. So, as many analysts have also said that Iran cannot attack America directly. They simply do not have the naval or the army power to,
Air Force,
or Air Force, anything that could reach American soil. So they are definitely right now they have just their that Supreme Commander Ayatollah has said that the country will take revenge against this attack. But
to America, right?
Exactly. But it's unclear how they can actually achieve this. So definitely there will be some violence. There will be attacks, possibly attacks on oil tankers, and
Saudi Arabia, oil refineries in Saudi Arabia.
They'll try to attack the American allies such as Saudi Arabia. Possibly even try to set up terrorist cells within America. Sort of fighting that proxy kind of war, because there cannot be possibly a direct conflict between these countries, because America would instantly destroy Iran. There's no chance of that kind of conflict happening. So it will be just on a much smaller scale. It will be difficult for American people who are living in the Middle East. Possibly there will be threats to their lives, and especially to the American forces who are in Iraq, because Iraq has a lot of Iranian supporters. So those peacekeeping forces that are right now in there could come under attack, and other military camps in Middle East could come under attacks. As Ashmit said here, there are a lot of proxies that they have in different countries, and Israel, of course, is a very next possible target, because that is somewhere that Iran could attack. And there could actually be, I mean, we can't say by certainty, but there is a possibility of an Iran-Israel war happening. So, because that is one place that Iran can reach. So, there are some options open for Iran to sort of take revenge for this action and avenge, as they are saying, the death of their second most important leader of the country. So, that is one place where Trump has overplayed his hand, I think, and he has done I don't think he has really thought this out, because he's taken quite a aggressive approach in killing of Soleimani, and that there could be a heavy price for Americans to pay for this in the long run.
I think the problem with Iranian response is that there's a new concept, I think, in the international relations of first strike. See, nobody wants war, because today the economy is dominated by global corporates and trade. So every big country tries to avoid war between states. And so the country who strikes first usually gets off with that. Take example of Russia and Crimea. They went on, America didn't send its forces to attack, because they know that this is going to escalate anytime. Of India and Pakistan, you can say the strikes in Balkot. Or also this, because once you do this, what will be the second option for that country? They have to attack, they have to send Air Force or something. So then what will be the third strike? Then there will be even a bigger retaliation. So the next country would be obviously forced to take a bitter pill and swallow it. So Iran's options are very limited, and a lot of people are saying they will do this, they will do that, but I don't see anything they can do. And any drastic retaliation will not be there, and this is a surprise to Iran also, because in some ways Iran has taken America for granted, and from Syria, in fact Israel to Iran, the entire space was dominated except Saudi Arabia and some Gulf countries was dominated by Iran. So by getting the main man removed, and it's a fantastical military operation. I mean, the main guy who was supposed to operate like shadowy organizations in 5 countries is eliminated without any trouble. So this will also come as a big surprise and threat to future Iranian operatives, that they are not safe. So reactions to this attack is very limited. But obviously for America, I think their influence over Shia countries like Iran and to an extent Iraq and Syria, and it's gone forever. So I don't think unless they prop up with something else, their strategy of aligning with Shia interest against Sunni Islamic militants, this strategy is not going to work now. They have to find now some other third player which they could back in Middle East. And I'm not certain what Mr. Trump has thought. I mean, killing a general or you may call him terrorist supporter, anything. But there has to be some end game. There has to be something that you are pushing up. So they don't have anyone. So even if you kill him, somebody else will rise up, and he will probably be not that efficient in organizing, but he has already left infrastructure. So the end game is not
But
clear.
I was also reading some political analysts who said that, I mean, there's a whole other game, that domestic politics that Trump is playing, but on a foreign level, international level, so there's also a chance that this could really destabilize the current Iranian structure. And because right now, even though he's just a leader of the Quds forces, but many people actually considered him to be the true foreign relations person also, and the true defense minister also, in a way. So that is a very big hole that has been left, and if Iran is able to come up with a suitable replacement, then it might be okay. But if they come up with someone who's not as strong and as this person, and he has been been there for like 30 years, so he has been playing a big role. And also, given the fact that there's a lot of protests that are going on in Iran right now, which were very violently put down, so this could also give a sort of morale boost to those protesters who might now suddenly come back to their protests and try to really take advantage of this sort of hole in the power structure, and take action against the supreme commander, Ayatollah. So in that way also, there is a possibility that he's trying to sort of doing a coup in Iran also in his own way.
Maybe this is a possibility.
So it's not like those older CIA-led coups that have taken place in Middle East before, and it happened in fact in Iran only in the 1950s. So that could be like a second part of that old strategy of America that America has. So that is also a possibility that maybe this could really topple the current government and bring real big change to Iran. And I mean, that's to be seen. That will happen in the coming months, and definitely it has bolstered the position of Trump in his own country, and the impeachment itself could now be not take place, because the upper house, where Republicans are dominating who are already in a dominant position, they might not be convinced not to vote against Trump. So that is again a very big change for him, but a lot of good news for him in a way. So that's also interesting to see what happened. And as you were saying, like, foreign governments have also not really issued any strong negative reaction against this step by Trump. So that is again if his international allies are not, they are with him only in a way. So that also puts him in a good position in a political scenario.
Actually, there are a lot of trending hashtags on Twitter of World War III, but to be honest, these are just figment of imagination that people are running wild, imagination running wild. Actually, in this world we live in, the chances of World War III is very bleak, because no country, like what happened in First World War, was that one prince got shot and all the countries stepped into war because they had given their promises that we will do this, we will do that. But in today's world, it is not going to happen like that, because the biggest player in today's world are China, America, Russia, whose economies are globally integrated, and that will be a big damage there, because even if Russia is like more of a traditional economy country, but they highly depend on global oil prices. So nobody is going to risk a war over some Iranian general, to be honest. And even Iran, I don't think can afford a war. So chances of World War III is very bleak, but obviously this will create a mistrust and a gulf between US and the Arabic and the Shia political forces, and there is a chance that they will do something in future to avenge this, because as you said that their situation may be strong in Iraq, Syria, Yemen, but their situation is at home is getting weaker and weaker. And they heavily rely on their the Revolutionary Guards and Quds forces, the paramilitaries, and instead of army, the main reliance is on paramilitaries and intelligence, which are loyal to Supreme Leader Khamenei. So striking at the heart of that establishment, which obviously means that they are chinks in the armor of Iran. And Soleimani was also tipped to be president in 2014, but he refused that, and he went back to the place where he was familiar with. So actually, he's called Rommel of Iran, considering his military prowess. But some people are also comparing him to Himmler of Germany. So that shows that how contrasting opinions people have on this issue. And surprisingly, his death has evoked emotional outbursts in many countries, even in India. Some people are protesting in Kashmir against this incident, and apparently they hadn't done that when the special status of Kashmir was revoked. So, which shows that the Shia hegemony of Iran is now truly prevalent throughout the world, and he has truly managed. The government, Khomeini has truly managed to unite all the Shia masses under his leadership across the world. So, which is a very powerful tool. So probably this was also one reason why Trump decided, because maybe it was getting to a point where Iran could really dictate in Shia interest throughout many countries instead of 5 or 6 countries which were under his thumb. So maybe this could be the reason.
So yeah, I think that's the only thing. I mean, it's a very bold move for Trump, and I think in the short term it will definitely help him. But long term, we'll have to see what Iran does and what are the future, changes in the Middle East policy of America. So we'll have to wait and see. Right now, everyone is too angry and too hot, and they're just saying whatever they want. But real action, we'll have to see what really happens on the ground in the coming months. So let's see. We'll wait for new things to happen, and if there is World War III, maybe we'll still be managed to make another podcast about it. So till then, I hope you had a good day and have fun. Thank you.